Whether it's what to eat for dinner or where to go for college, sometimes our kids struggle to make decisions, and especially when it comes to the harder stuff, the big stuff, you can't decide for them. But our Studio 5 parenting contributor says there is still a way to aid them in the decision-making process. Heather Johnson joins me with ways to better parent our indecisive kid. This is such a great topic. I think there's got to be one in every family. And the truth is we all struggle with decisions, but when you watch a kid do it, it can be somewhat agonizing.
It can be challenging, and this is something we're all dealing with every day. And sometimes it's hard to be patient, especially because we look at the decisions and we deem them so insignificant so quickly. And so we've got to take a step back and realize that it is the learning decision-making process we're trying to support and be patient with, not if they want the red shirt or the blue shirt. And that can be hard. Our kids have struggles this way for lots of different reasons, and you would want to look at your own child and better understand where they struggle and why decisions are hard. But lots of times they struggle simply because both options are great, right? And so they want both, so it's hard to give one up for the other one. Oftentimes, if you have a child who deals with a lot of anxiety or a teenager or ADHD, that makes making decisions more difficult. Especially as kids get older, they struggle with decisions because sometimes they deem the decisions as right or wrong, meaning they're afraid to mess up. And so they don't make any decisions at all because they're afraid when they decide if it's wrong, they'll either be in trouble or it will send them down the wrong path. And so that's a huge reason.
And we don't often think of, I think especially teenagers, we don't think of them processing the consequence like that.
Right, and yet they do. They look at it and go, well, what if I choose wrong? Well, then I'm just not gonna choose. That indecisiveness, it brings on paralysis. And so they just sit still, because at least if I don't make a decision, then I'm not making a wrong decision. And we can also see oftentimes that control manifests itself as indecisiveness, where kids want control, and so the indecisiveness becomes that byproduct of wanting more control.
I'm gonna hold this card because it's the only card I feel like I have in my hand, and I'm gonna hang on to it.
I'm gonna hang on to it.
You talked about how it can be frustrating for parents, and it does, it takes patience. I don't care if you're dealing with a 4-year-old or a 14-year-old, right, to make those choices or watch them tap our toes as they make those choices. But you say focusing on the long-term perspective is where we need to start here.
And that has to happen first. So here's an interesting thing about being a parent. We are asked to be in the moment with our children every single day. We've talked about this, you and I, over and over about how important it is to be present. But while I'm being present, I am also being asked to think long-term. I need to consider both in the same moment. And that's a huge challenge to being a parent. So when it comes to an indecisive child, we want to focus on the long term. We're right most of the time that the decisions they're making today, they don't matter all that much. But the skills they're learning today when they make decisions matter in the long run. And so we have to balance both of those things. What they eat for lunch, it really doesn't matter. What they wear to school, that doesn't matter. But the skills they learn, they need those desperately to be functioning adults. So we gotta think long term.
Super well said. I mean, the skills in the moment, those in the moment, processing, learning, I'm soaking it up kind of skills. You also want us to encourage over praise.
Over praise, yes. So encouragement is when we talk to our children in ways that rewards them. Rewards who they are. Right? Like you worked hard. Praise is when we reward the task. So when we look at them and say that they've worked hard and that's why the tower got built, that's encouraging them. But praising them is when we just simply give them the reward that the tower looks great. And so we want to make sure that we're doing a lot more encouraging than praising. And here's why. Encouragement builds confidence. And when our kids have confidence, they're more likely to be decisive. They can make decisions when they're confident.
So does that mean I'm not saying good choice?
You can tell them you're better off encouraging the characteristics or qualities that it took to make the choice.
Like I like your thoughtfulness?
Yes, than the choice itself. Or that you put energy and effort into this, or the way you reasoned that out. Remember too, when we encourage and we're specific that way about rewarding who they are and those skills and abilities, they'll duplicate them. They'll duplicate that they're thoughtful because we've been specific with them.
This is making me think.
We want to focus on encouraging them. It's not that the praise has to be completely excluded from our parenting. We just want to emphasize the encouragement. We want to focus on rewarding that these are kids who are working hard.
Well, and circling back to those skill building opportunities, then we're encouraging the skill. We're not praising the choice.
And those skills go with them forever.
All right.
With them forever.
We want to promote action.
Yes, we want them to move, right? And this is back where we can be impatient. We want to put our impatience aside We want to keep a long-term perspective, and we'll find ourselves stuck where our kids are not making decisions. So when that happens, to encourage action, we want to look at them and say, all right, do you want the red or the blue, right? Or do you want a hot dog or a hamburger? When they don't choose or are indecisive, we then look at them next and say, would you like to decide or choose, or would you like your mom to decide or choose?
Take it away.
Right? Now, as soon as we offer that, they will most likely still be indecisive. We know those kids we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And so then we're going to choose. And we're going to choose the hamburger, and they're probably going to say, no, I wanted the hot dog, and they're going to be disappointed. And so we can look at them to promote this choosing and say, I'm sorry you're disappointed with the hamburger and my decision. Next time you can decide for yourself. And they can start to learn while we're promoting that choice that they can choose it, and that when they don't, there are consequences or byproducts to that.
How do you feel about putting a time limit on a choice? Like, I'm standing there in front of the closet, we'll go back to red shirt, blue shirt, and I've tried to work through, the encouragement and promoting the action, and finally I'm saying, buddy, I'm gonna count down from 20 and you gotta make a choice. Am I promoting anxiety? Am I ruining my child?
Yeah, no. But here's the thing with counting. It's the same when we count the other way, when we need them to stop misbehaving and we say, okay, you have 3, 2, 1, or we go the other direction. We actually train them to then make decisions or to behave under that time frame.
Under pressure.
Right? And so it's not always that great if we can step away from that. It's where, as parents, we want to look at it and say, wait a second, what are the long-term goals here? There might be some mornings where you're late to school because you're working through an indecisive or with an indecisive child. And then there might be some mornings where you know your child well enough to say, hey, I'm going to actually decide, and I'm going to help you get where you need to be. So you want to be individual with your child, but you don't want decisions to be places of stress all the time. They will shut down and not make decisions. So if every morning becomes this power struggle over what they wear, we're better off saying, it's a shirt. I'm more concerned that you have one on than what color it is. And making sure your focus is there.
So you mentioned the goals, also support. At the end of the day, you want us to support their choice.
We do. We want to support their choice. And if we touch on goals just really briefly, this is even different than the long-term goals. This is shifting from the decision-making process to the goals behind it. We just did this with our 11-year-old. Just this weekend, she was in this position where she had to choose between going on a bike ride or going to a friend's house. Well, she wanted both. I would want both too. And so we moved it backwards to what the goals underlying it were. So the choice now became, do you want to go strengthen a friendship today, or do you want to be physically active and see new things? And so as soon as we pulled it back to the goals underlying those two choices, it was very easy for her to look at it and decide. Now, it's the same with a college student. If we get old for a second, if you have a student right now, a senior who's trying to decide where they're going to school or accepting those different options, you can say, do you want to go to this school where the goal would be to hang out with your friends, or this school where it supports the program and the profession you want to go into? Well, now they're looking at the goals behind it. That's a very different decision than, am I going to go to the U or am I going to go to BYU? It's a totally different decision. So helping them see the goals is also really, really important.
I love that, and supporting their choice at the end of the day. This was really helpful, especially approaching the school year. I find a lot of application in school mornings to school decisions. Good job, Heather. Thank you so much. Heather has a private practice where she coaches families and individuals. You can find her contact information on our website. We will be right back.